I'm not a purist. While I enjoy some of Tolkien's writings, I don't mind when someone else tinkers with what he did in adaptations. Some people didn't like that a mere 300-page children's book was adapted into almost 8 hours of film. From a money-grabbing point of view, I understand not liking that. But if you can add to and expand on the original story, I want to see what you can do, provided you can do it in an interesting way. For instance, Legolas was not in the Hobbit book, and some people probably thought this was just a way to lure in more audiences. Hey, you recognize him from the Lord of the Rings movies, here he is again. But Legolas did live in that forest with his dad, who was in the Hobbit book, so it makes sense for him to be here in these Hobbit movies. You might argue that the movies didn't really do anything noteworthy with him when they added him, and I won't argue with that. Maybe the idea was, when we're all at each other's throats, good people die, so next time the ultimate evil comes knocking, I won't let racial prejudices blind me to what needs to be done. And maybe that's why Legolas exiled himself from the forest. Maybe he wanted to become more familiar with the outside world, so he could better aid others in the war against the necromancer in the years to come. I don't mind doing something like that, even though the idea didn't come from Tolkien. House of the Dragon does this a little bit. For example, adding Hugh the Hammer into the show earlier than when he appeared in the book Fire and Blood. I suppose this doesn't bother some people as much as it does when it happens with Tolkien, because Tolkien is dead and can't voice his approval when changes are made, while George R.R. Martin is alive and can give the thumbs up when something is added or expanded from what he originally wrote. So what if, and I won't go so far as to suggest this would have improved the Hobbit movies, maybe this would have been just a fun Easter egg but nothing more. What if, instead of Thranduil telling Legolas to go meet a ranger, who according to the lore would have been 10 years old at the time, what if they did something else? When Thorin and his crew first come to Rivendell, there's a little boy, very clearly not an elf, and when the dwarves say, hey, we have much to discuss, Elrond says, Estel, go to your room. And Estel is all, I want to hear about treasure, but he's a dutiful foster son, so he goes to his room. That's it. You don't call any more attention to it, saying, one day, he's going to be friends with your son. The hardcore fans know Estel is Aragorn's elvish name, and that he was fostered at Rivendell after his father died. It's an expansion on what Tolkien wrote, as Aragorn wasn't mentioned in the Hobbit book, but we can still extrapolate that he would have been there during these events. It's a harmless little exercise, but still fun to think about, I think.